Welcome into the Thunder Basketball Universe presented by COOP Ale Works. It's an exciting time here in the TBU because the Thunder's 2023-24 schedule has been released. We're recording this on Friday, August 18th. That means the schedule was released yesterday, and all four of us know exactly what we'll be doing for the next 6 months. So it's an exciting time. We have a day now. We've been able to digest, study this schedule, mark our calendars. So we had to bring the whole crew in to help break down everything that you need to know for this upcoming season. Brought in the A-team with us. We've got our very own Royce Young and, of course, Matt Pinto, the Thunder's radio play-by-play. Guys, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate
Good
it.
to be here.
Just on a personal front, can we talk about just how big of a deal schedule day is for us?
Well, I mean, I bet for somebody like Matt, even more than me, but it's like, this is truly like the schedule to your life. Here you go. Here's what you're doing for the next 6 months. And any plans that you have otherwise are now laid out.
I still, and it blows me away sometimes, in the 34 years I've been blessed to do this, it's still like Christmas morning. It's like, they're gifts that you want to open up. Sometimes like you're thinking, well, what were they thinking? I don't want another pair of socks. You know what I mean? Like you see something in the schedule that doesn't particularly fit what you had wanted. But in general, it's always great to see. And you always look at the holidays, and like my son's birthday is November 11th. So where are we on November 11th? Things like that. But it's great to now know, and you begin to structure your thought process around what it is in front of us.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, not to tease the schedule too much, but are you bringing Nash to Phoenix with us?
Well, it's looking like we'll be celebrating his birthday a couple days early.
Well, let's just get into it then. Some of the hierarching themes and things that I know we first look at is, where are we starting this season at? On the road in Chicago, and that 2-game road trip, going to be a good start, but then getting back home on October 29th, facing the defending champion Denver Nuggets. That is going to be one heck of a way to start this season.
Can't wait to hear Paycom Center and that crowd when the defending champs roll in town. Division rival, of course, and that is going to be an awesome matinee game, 2:30 p.m. tip-off. And, prior to that, a couple opportunities for this team to build some rhythm coming off of preseason against some Eastern Conference teams in Chicago and Cleveland.
Yeah, and what I like about it, Royce, is that 6 of the first 8 are at home. There's a 6-game homestand after that 2 road test, Chicago, Cleveland, 2 games in 3 days. And so I think a lot of times you look for, can we generate some positivity and maybe a little bit of momentum coming off the preseason early on in the season? And I think with the 6th man in full voice at Paycom Center, there's an opportunity for the team to do that this season.
Yeah, and also I will say that one big positive of Chicago, Cleveland to start the season on the road is better to play those teams in early late October, rather than like December, January.
Say that again, Roy.
Those are 2 tough cities to go to midwinter. But to your point, Matt, I think that, that starting on the road a lot of times, I think especially maybe for a young team, there's a little less pressure, I would think, being able to just kind of get away and kind of get your feet wet within the season. There's a lot of identity establishing that goes on early in years, even though this Thunder team, I think the continuity that they have, they're going to have a real big head start in that. Every season is new. You start 0-0, you have to start over. You have to build back things that you did last year. Even with the carryover on this roster, there's new elements to it that you're going to have to try to kind of integrate, obviously with Chet Holmgren being the most significant part of that. But it is going to be awesome to get those 2 games and then see the team come back at home. Because like you said, Nick, I think that first home game is going to be fun. And it feels like there's an energy around the team right now that is going to have this building buzzing.
Well, and another nice thing is you get to play one night later inside Paycom Center. Also, you get Detroit on this home back-to-back. We've seen more of these home back-to-backs. And you talk about maybe young team, trying to still work things out early in the season. You play the defending champions. Well, you get a chance to play the next night too. So you can either carry over that momentum or just keep bouncing right back off of, a game against an elite high level opponent. So
Well, and not to mention, that starts a 6-game homestand for the Thunder. So that is one heck of a way to open up this season, getting comfortable at home, getting all your pieces together in a familiar environment. Another thing that I just wanted to point out here, just about the schedule overall, it's a little different than schedules previously because there are only 80 games scheduled.
I came in Paris yesterday in the office, and I'm like making the joke. Everybody makes, is there 82 games on there this year? They're like, actually, no.
No,
just 80.
Royce, you're wrong.
Oh, okay.
We'll get to the in-season tournament here in just a little bit. But, I mean, that's a factor here.
It is.
When you talk about November and then leading into December, there's a whole week in the December schedule that is kind of cordoned off for that.
Nick, you and I were trying to do the mental gymnastics yesterday of like, okay, what could potentially be in these 2 gaps in our schedule? It's a lot of work, so I do not envy the person that has to put these together during the NBA season. But if we're going to talk about gifts, Mr. Pinto, can we talk about the holiday season for the Thunder? Again, at home for a long time during Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah, home for Thanksgiving, which you love. But the Christmas situation for the second consecutive year is phenomenal. And it's like 6 consecutive games at home from before Christmas until we get towards the end of the new year, then 1 road game and then back for New Year's Eve, which is the typical classic, matchup. They'll face the Brooklyn Nets on this occasion. But yeah, I mean, you couldn't ask for more around the holidays. And I got a sense, guys, I'm not into predictions, but I think we may not have a lot of Christmases off moving forward. This is one we do, so we're grateful for that.
Yes.
It's going to definitely soak up that time for sure. And 7 of 8 between Christmas and New Year's. You also have Thanksgiving where you're home the day before Thanksgiving, no game the Friday after Thanksgiving, and then home again on Saturday. So really nice opportunity for these guys, especially being so young. They're still kind of growing out of that time where they've been with their families every single year at the holidays. Really nice for them to be able to kind of transition into professional life in that way.
Well, and for a lot of players on this team, like you mentioned it, Nick, I've seen it firsthand that there's a lot of international players and their families a lot of times will come over for almost the whole month of December. And so it is a huge benefit that they can spend extended time with their family here in Oklahoma City, whereas they're, bouncing in and out, going in on the road and coming back. So it's one of those like small benefits, but it's good for the players, and I'm sure that they're going to appreciate that.
I wouldn't suggest the international families come in January.
Right.
Yeah. Going to be home alone a lot in January.
There are 80 games, as Royce was able to confirm. 40 of those are on the road, and almost all of them are in January.
So with all of those home games in December, naturally, January, the Thunder going to be traveling a lot of road games, and it's consists of 2 4-game road trips that are kind of broken up by a couple of home games here and there, but only 6 times you could see the Thunder at home in Paycom Center in January.
Yeah, and a stretch of 11 of 14 on the road, and this is a great opportunity for this Thunder team to kind of test its mettle. And something that we noticed last season was there was a big long stretch of games against Western Conference teams. This is a really West heavy stretch, kind of in the back half of that month. So a really good opportunity for the Thunder to kind of battle some of these teams that they're going to get real familiar with over the course of the season.
I think the other thing about that month, 11 of the 17, so 17 games in a month is a high volume of games in general. 11 of those on the road, 4 back-to-backs. So depth will be called into the fore. And we know Mark Daignault, Royce, has had the propensity to go deep many nights. Right. And his moniker is all about be ready, because at any moment your number could be called. So I think that we'll see this team's depth potentially shine in that month and potentially give them an advantage. I really think that's an edge this team could build into this season, given the quality of layered talent on this roster.
Am I wrong? Was last year's January kind of the same way?
It was a little bit, yeah. January is always kind of a slog to kind of get through.
Because 17 games is the maximum amount you can play in a month by rule. And of course, that's what the Thunder have here. And like, there's 5 back-to-backs in that month, which makes it tough. But like you said, Matt, I think it is really important that this is why the Thunder take the approach that they do with the roster. That's why Mark Daignault takes the approach he does. A lot of it has to do with this. It is not a 20-game schedule. It's an 82-game schedule where and some possibly 83.
We'll get into that.
But and so you have to be able to utilize your whole roster, and that goes even just beyond like your top of the line starters too. That's managing their minutes, not overtaxing them in a month where you can really get caught up in a back-to-back situation or 4 games in 5 nights or whatever, but you have to try to keep the long view in mind. And also, not only that, are you trying to keep players fresh and healthy for the long run of the season, but you're also developing other players on the roster, giving them good opportunities. And that's been one of the areas I think Mark Daignault has really thrived with. And also, because of his ability to manage the roster the way he has, I think it's allowed the front office to really build a roster that Mark Daignault can tap into. I mean, there's right now we see it with the roster situation. There's more players than there are available spots, and that creates that really positive competition within the roster. And a lot of that just has to do with the coaching philosophy.
Yeah, and when you have a marathon of a schedule like the NBA has, you have to be able to outlast the competition, and that means within games. That means over the course of the season. That means over the course of a month. 4 straight games on the road. You're home for a second for road home back to back, one more game, then you're back on the road for 4 straight, and then you're home for one game, and you're back on the road for 3 straight. Can you outlast the other team? Can your conditioning be right? Can your physicality be right? Can your rest and your discipline, can you outlast the competition in that regard?
Well, and I think that's where hearing the Thunder talk all the time about it's the same pattern of readiness and preparedness day to day to day to day. And that may sound cliche to a fan, but when you have a young roster that buys in that regard, then it's about what's the next challenge? What's the next challenge? And they don't get caught up in the number of games in a month, how many back-to-backs. They don't, based on what we saw from them a season ago, guys. I think they collectively come together, they recognize they're challenged every night, and they relish those challenges. They're young. They're looking to continue to define what their identity is all about in this league.
Just to add on to that, some of the most positive parts of last year's schedule was some of those adverse situations. Like January sticks out, but there was also that long road trip where the team went back and forth with zip codes, I remember. And that was when the Thunder really kind of dug in and played some of their best ball, and I think really kind of forged some of the identity that they have. So a lot of times you get into these tough pockets of the schedule, but that's really kind of where you find who you are. And you can tap into some of your team kind of spiritual traits. And that's what you'd love to see even before that you get to that January, but really hammer it down when you get there.
This is somewhat to me reminiscent, guys, of the San Antonio Spurs rodeo road trip. They prepare for it at a certain point in the schedule all season, and it's been known to galvanize them. They look forward to it. They bond. They come together in new ways. They learn about one another in challenging scenarios. And I think January is going to be viewed somewhat that way by this team.
I'll be really interested to see, because there are going to be some unique challenges to this January. You mentioned the 5 back-to-backs. 4 of those are either home road or road home back-to-backs. Playing in 2 different locations. You got to travel immediately after the game. Those are going to be really interesting to see for the Thunder, and kind of something we haven't seen in a while, that many home road back-to-backs for a team. However, the longest road trip of the season for the Thunder doesn't start until the end of March. That is a 5-game road trip that starts in New York. It takes the team to Philly, Boston, Indiana, and then ends in Chicago. The beauty of that, though, the Thunder ends the season on a 4-game homestand. So that is kind of an overview of how the season's going to play out for the Thunder. And I feel like we should probably get into this in-season tournament a little bit. For those who might not understand. All right, let's break it down. So each team has been assigned a group, and during the season, during the regular season, during the month of November, each team will participate in group play. So the Thunder is a part of a group that consists of Minnesota, Golden State, Sacramento, I'm missing one.
San Antonio.
San Antonio. Thank you. We will all play each other one time during group play. The best team out of that group with the best record will advance to the knockout round. In addition to those teams that get advanced to the knockout round, there's also a wild card team from each conference. Right. So that consists of 8 teams that'll make it to the knockout round. That is going to be a semifinal, a quarterfinal, semifinal, championship. And then that 83rd game will be the championship game.
And that will not count against the regular season record. So it's a pretty creative approach by the NBA to be able to get all 82 games to still count towards the regular season, but to get this NBA Cup as well that teams can go after. So, Paris, as you mentioned, the 8 teams 4 from the West, 4 from the East that make the in-season tournament, they'll play on December 4th and 5th in the quarterfinals. And then the winners of those games will go on to play on the 7th in Las Vegas for the semifinals. Winners then will stay in Vegas and play on the 8th, or excuse me, on the 9th in the championship game. On the 6th and the 8th, the 22 teams that did not make the in-season tournament, they will play 2 regular season games, opponents to be determined, but they will be drawn from teams that are currently on the schedule in the Western Conference that the Thunder is only slated to play 3 times so far. So hopefully that sheds a little bit of light here on what will happen down the line. But guys, what's your take on the in-season tournament overall?
Well, I love our boss Dan Mahoney's suggestion, and that was, let's call it the Silver Cup after Adam Silver, the commissioner, and it is silver. Yeah. So I prefer that to the NBA Cup, just a side note.
I'm here for it.
But look, Adam Silver has been progressive since he took over. This is a progressive step to bring some positivity, some new light prior to the Christmas Day celebration of fans that, hey, the NBA season's here. Well, the NBA season's been around for a couple months by the time the national narrative really catches up. This is going to, I think, precede that by a full month, paying more attention to the games in November that will have double meaning for the regular season standings and the standings as they relate to this in-season tournament scenario. So I think it's all good. It's all positive. I like the step the NBA is taking. Royce, I think this is probably past due, honestly.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I know a lot of people are going to look at it. They're going to be either confused by it or they're going to say, why are they doing this? But a lot of this you have to think about is you have to take it in the long view.
Right.
And, a lot of this was inspired by European soccer and, where there's the FA Cup and there's, two major tournaments that the Premier League teams or the English soccer teams play. And, those have been around for over 100 years, and they've kind of forged themselves in part of the identity of English soccer, and fans love them. And there's a power in winning it, and there's a tradition in those. And so this is year one of this. So,
right.
I think a lot of fans, they may kind of roll their eyes at it or not quite understand it or whatever it is, but approach it as this is year one of maybe something that could become really cool. And maybe 5, 10, 15 years from now, it's a staple part of the NBA season.
Right.
And there's a lot of pride in winning it. Right now, I think a lot of people are like, who cares if you win this thing? And what does it even mean? But there could become a point where this is a big part and it's a big feather in your cap to be, maybe the Silver Cup champion or NBA Cup champion. So, I would advise fans to take a very open mind to it and really embrace the fact, like Matt said, I think it's something cool for the NBA schedule to add some juice to it, to bring some attention to the earlier part of it. I think that's huge. NBA players, these games are highly competitive no matter what. I think a lot of fans, maybe casual fans, don't quite realize that. So maybe this will kind of clue people in that these guys are playing hard from, opening night on. So I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be awesome. And also I think that there's a chance for it to evolve and change, and they can learn from it and they can make adjustments and make it better. But I think it's a really creative step, and I'm a huge fan of it. I'm really excited to see how it plays out.
I just think about the experience that we all had in the play-in last season.
Yeah.
And we're going to get a little bit of that same feel, regardless of whether the team makes the in-season tournament or whether they just have these 2 regular season games, in the sense that there's that sort of anticipation of like, I don't know where we're going after this. If you're in the in-season tournament, are we flying to Vegas after this? Or are we going off to some other destination? That little bit of like uncertainty, are we going back home? Are we going somewhere else? That just breaks up the rhythm of the schedule, especially kind of in that November, December area, and will provide a little bit of a jolt of adrenaline to the teams, I think.
And the play-in is a great example, Nick, of this. And it was kind of born out of necessity with the bubble and trying to kind of accommodate. Right. And it was successful there. And so they kind of kept it around. And then they basically made it permanent within the NBA. And, still, I think for some people they're kind of new to it. I remember, since the Thunder were in that mix last year, they were trying to get familiar with it. But it has been pretty universally successful, and how much it's really galvanized kind of the back end of the regular season with teams battling for it. More teams are in play going through, and the competition level has raised up. And so the play-in tournament, it feels like it's here to stay, and it's only taken just a couple of years, and it already feels like it's part of kind of the fabric of the NBA schedule.
Right.
And so that's just going to continue on, and this in-season tournament could do the same
And
thing.
a year ago, we saw 2 number 10 seeds win.
Exactly.
In advance. So there was this sense of, well, maybe that, 10 team is not necessary here, because it has been on occasion a sub 500 team in each of the conferences. But we saw the 10 seeds, the Bulls in the East, the Thunder in the West, excel last year in the play-in. So I think that there's a new dynamic afoot in the league. And I think that to be progressive this way, it's a feather in the league's cap. And I think we need to acknowledge it in that light. That's how I view it.
And there are going to be some really exciting matchups in this group stage. I mean, if you look at the Thunder's group overall, really good matchups in general. And just if you want to mark your calendars right now, the group play games are already scheduled. It's going to be November 3rd against the Golden State Warriors, November 10th at Sacramento, November 14th against San Antonio. That's going to be a nationally televised game on TNT. And then again on November 28th at Minnesota. So mark those calendars. Those are going to be some really exciting matchups. I just find it so interesting that we have 2 fewer games on the schedule, and I feel like we had a lot of explaining to do this year more than any other year. So, Matt, Royce, thank you guys so much for helping us break down this schedule. Hope you guys soaked all of that in. Make sure to tell your friends to listen to this podcast, too. They can get everything that they need to know as well. All right, don't go anywhere. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back right after this.
COOP Ale Works is the proud sponsor of Thunder Basketball Universe. Brewers of the fan favorites F5 IPA and 99-calorie Ice Chest IPA. You'll find those and many more COOP beers at retailers across Oklahoma. Learn more at CoopAleWorks.com.
All right, we've talked enough about the Thunder all the way down the future in October. We're going to focus on the Thunder and what's happening during the month of August. And this group right now, they're all over the world. And some of our guys are representing their countries for this FIBA World Cup. Notably, Josh Giddey playing with the Australian Boomers. Congrats to Josh. And, of course, our Canadian friends, Mr. Lou Dort and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, representing Team Canada. Those games will be happening very, very soon. In fact, starting August 25th. Those are going to be some really fun games to watch. You might have to wake up a little early. Sorry about that.
Or
Maybe
just
grab
stay
a
up
cup
really
of
late.
coffee. Yeah, just be ready to watch those games.
Yeah, August 25th, Australia plays against Finland at 3 o'clock in the morning Central Time, and Canada plays against France at 8:30 a.m. That is going to be an awesome matchup between those two teams.
Mm-hmm.
And then both both Canada and Australia play again on the 27th and on the 29th. Similar time frame, is very early in the morning, so you're going to want to get up and either just hang in there bleary-eyed and grab 2 or 3 coffees to be able to watch these games.
Yeah, I think that we know the quality of what exists internationally. There's such a big flavor to that in the NBA right now. And I know all of these guys that wear Thunder uniforms in the regular season embrace this as a challenge. It's a different environment, a little bit different strategy that they're taking to the court. And I think that recognizing the caliber of competition, they've seen, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for example, has said, he's seen players develop during the course of a summer with the international team. And that was a major enticement for him to jump in with Team Canada. So I think it is absolutely worth getting up early to watch these guys. I think we're all curious about how have they evolved in the offseason? What work have they put in? And will we see it visibly in how they're playing for their international team? But this is terrific. I think it's a very positive thing for this team, this organization. We haven't mentioned Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams, J-Dub, participating with the U.S. Select team that gave the national team all it wanted out in Vegas in some competitive halves and quarters that they had scrimmages in.
This is good training camp for me because it's prepping me for the Ryder Cup. I'm a huge golf junkie.
There you go.
And I'm going to have to wake up at the same time for the Ryder Cup because it's in Rome this year. So this is good practice for me to get up early and watch these games. But no, I mean, this is a lot of players talked last year. I remember just, in some of the exhibition games and prepping, and there were some qualification games last summer, and they would talk about how sharp it made them feel coming into training camp. And obviously this is just higher level competition because this is an actual tournament. But you go through this, and now, there's kind of a rest element that you're going to have to take. And, we'll see how even a lot of NBA teams, the Thunder included, approach that with some of these players that play heavy minutes in the World Cup. But, it really just kind of accelerates the training camp schedule for a lot of these guys, and they will become they'll be sharper when they show up back in NBA training camp because they've gone through this game preparation, played against high level competition. But these games are super fun to watch. Like Matt said, it's fun to see where players have made changes, but the game also just plays stylistically a little bit different. Teams have their own kind of chemistry and cohesion. So it's going to be really exciting. And Team Canada specifically, they're good.
Yeah.
And, the kind of the revolution in Canadian basketball has been really interesting to see. RJ Barrett had a huge game the other day for them in qualifying. So they've got a lot of talent on their roster, and they're a threat to win the tournament, quite honestly.
Yeah, and the quarters through the finals will be September 5th through 10th. So be sure to keep an eye on that and whether Australia and Canada are able to make it that far. The timing, also very fascinating. Just kind of what you're pointing out, Royce, is like, these guys are going to pretty much roll straight from that into coming into market here in Oklahoma City. And then training camp is going to be early October. And so they'll be able to sort of hit the ground running. I think a little bit about the World Baseball Classic, where a lot of those guys were playing leading up to the start of the MLB season. And a lot of those guys were able to carry over some momentum from that.
Because keep in mind, these guys are going to be playing right now anyway.
Right.
I mean, you can go on Instagram or TikTok or anything, and you're going to see guys playing basketball right now.
The difference is that these guys are playing meaningful games, games that have some pride, some weight to them. That Josh mentioned that he's just excited to be able to represent his country. He's never been able to play for the Boomers on this sort of stage before. And so there's some weight, there's a lot of gravity to this, and a lot of guys have been waiting their entire lives to be able to play in this sort of environment.
And one small benefit too, I'll just throw in there, that training camp is actually a week late this year. And so I think that even helps to some degree, and it's a good thing to be sharp because it is starting a little bit later. So these guys do have even more of a head start, but they'll also have that extra little built-in week of rest where they otherwise wouldn't because of the international.
Yeah, if they go all the way to the championship game September 10th, we're looking at October 2nd, October 3rd as to when they'll start camp. So that's 3+ weeks, which is favorable.
Definitely.
Given what they will have gone through.
Definitely. And we know we'll all be keeping tabs on that, staying up early / staying up late, waking up early to watch these games.
You might be a little bit confused yourselves.
I know. There's a lot of thinking and stuff scheduling happening over here in the Thunder Basketball universe. But make sure you mark your calendars for this schedule, which you can find on OKCThunder.com. Add it to your calendars. Get to Paycom Center. Watch these games. And it's going to be a really fun season, guys. I'm really looking forward to it. A lot of excitement surrounding this team this year. All right, well, we want to thank you so much for watching and listening. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much to our producer, Matt Bishop, and to our special guests, Royce and Matt. And until next time, Thunder up, and catch you later.